And members of the audience as well. Thank you for attending the League of Women Voters of Santa Fe County's Forum for Senate District number 24. I'm Byron Treaster, and I'll be the moderator this evening. I'm a member of the League. On behalf of the League, we'd like to thank the Santa Fe New Mexican, which has sponsored the broadcast of the forums for several years now. The Senate District candidates in District 24 are, on the far end, Anna Hansen, in the middle, Veronica Krupnick, and on this end, Linda Trujillo. I'd like to thank you all. As you can imagine, the League is committed to civil discourse. The candidates have agreed to the League's protocol for candidate forums, including respecting the time limits for responses, not engaging in crosstalk, and being mutually respectful, courteous, constructive, and orderly, even when they might disagree with one another. The questions we will ask will be selected by our screening panel based on what appear to be those questions that generate the most interest. Questions that are similar will be consolidated, and questions that are directed to only one candidate or contain a personal attack will, as you can understand, be eliminated. Due to time constraints, not all questions can be asked. We invite you to stay after the forum for an opportunity to ask your additional questions to the candidates. If you haven't already submitted your questions, you can email them to the League's website. That's lwvsfc@gmail.com. Again, lwvsfc@gmail.com. You may email those questions now or at any time during the forum. For those of you attending in person, we will be distributing 3x5 cards. If you'll raise your hand, we'll submit those to you. Please limit one question per note card, and for all of our benefit, please attempt to write legibly. Hold the card up when you're finished writing, and our runners will pick that up. Our timekeeper again this year is Mary Schruben. She will give a yellow sign with 30 seconds left in your response. I will try to tell you the length of the response before you begin the answer. And at the end of that 30 seconds, she'll hold up a red stop sign, and I ask that at that point you immediately stop your response. Otherwise, I'll interrupt you. We want to be fair to everyone here. In the interest of time, members of the audience, please hold your applause until the end of the forum. I want to review the responsibilities of State Senate District 24, and for that matter, I believe all state senators. I'm told it is this: in addition to other duties prescribed by law, state senators are expected to enact reasonable and appropriate laws, represent their constituents, and serve on standing and interim committees. We will begin with 2-minute opening statements by the candidates, and after the questions are completed, there will be 1-minute closing statements in reverse order. We will start with closing statements at the far end, first with Anna Hansen.
Opening
opening statement, excuse me, opening statement.
Okay, how's that? Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you for everyone who has come here. Yeah, this is an unusual race. We have 3 candidates running on the Democratic ticket, so it makes it a little harder than normal. But I want to explain to you and share with you that I have been an environmental champion my entire life. I have worked on water issues. I am completely committed to a carbon-free environment. We need to pay attention to our youth and work hard to make sure that we are providing the kind of services that our constituents want. Part of what I have done at the county for the last 8 years is work on be an environmental leader. We are that. Throughout the nation, New Mexico is leading the way. So everything from banning hard rock mining, which I think is incredibly important. We didn't completely ban it, but we put really tough regulations on it, bonding and requirements and cleanup requirements, and therefore it makes it really difficult for mining companies to be involved here. I have also put solar panels and EV stations on all of our county buildings, and those are the kind of things that I want to do at the legislature. We need to make sure that we provide services to our constituents, of course, but also I want to just continue to say that I will always work to clean up Los Alamos from the nuclear contamination that is running down the streams to our river, the Rio Grande, and I will always work to protect our water.
Thank you, Ms. Hansen. Next opening statement will be from Veronica Krupnick.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for inviting me to join you all today. My name is Veronica Krupnick, and I'm running for the New Mexico Senate here in District 24. I am proudly a native New Mexican who grew up on arroyo walks, watermelon sunsets, and yes, of course, green chili. I'm a 28-year-old Indigenous leader who has dedicated my life to one mission, and that's protecting our children, youth, and families. My determination stems from my own personal lived experience navigating the New Mexico foster care system just down south in Albuquerque. I am in this fight to protect the lives behind the numbers because I know that policy is personal. I feel I've had the best hands-on experience that I could ask for before running for office, quickly working my way up from a campaign assistant to now serving as the leadership analyst and child welfare specialist to one of our state's greatest policy champions, House Majority Leader Representative Gail Chasey. Having worked the most recent 30 and 60-day legislative sessions, often spending those 15-plus hour days running around our state capitol, this experience has shown me the commitment, will, and strength that is needed to serve in the New Mexico legislature. Before joining the leaders team, I spent 5 years working directly with system-impacted young people who were navigating the foster care and juvenile justice system, while also building the mentorship, advocacy, and peer support program from the ground up for a local nonprofit, Casa First. I'm very proud to share that I am an established voice in local, state, and national child welfare policy who has focused on addressing poverty, racial equity, and trauma-responsive services. I'm really happy to be here with you all, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Krupnick. And the last opening statement, Linda Trujillo.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you to the League and the Santa Fe New Mexican and everyone who's here this evening. It's nice to see some friendly faces. Maya Angelou said that people will never forget. They'll forget what you said, they'll forget what you do, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. My name's Linda Trujillo, and I'm running for State Senate in District 24 to be a positive change and enact positive laws. I've got a list of things that are important to me. These issues are important because I've lived with financial uncertainty. I've experienced the trauma of food insecurity and depended on food stamps to feed my family. I've had to choose between health care for my children or paying for housing. My life changed because a few amazing women in my life helped me access education, higher education, and break the cycle of poverty. The upcoming election is crucial for several reasons, especially given the unprecedented challenges that we face. We live in a time of uncertainty with pressing issues such as affordable housing, food security, climate change, and quite honestly, our democracy is at stake. We need leaders who can rise to the occasion, bringing people together and leading with compassion and integrity. When I was elected to the school board, there were less than 60 slots for early childhood. When I left the school board, there was over 600. As a state legislator, I sponsored legislation to create the early education department. We are now at the top in providing early ed. I also had the honor of passing legislation for elections, same-day voter registration, updating the voter code, and this year, New Mexico was determined to have the best election process in the country. And for that reason, I ask for your support.
Thank you. Before I begin with the questions, I want to call to your attention the added importance of this forum. As I understand it, these three candidates currently are unopposed. There is no Republican in the primary. So it's very likely that the winner of the June 4 primary amongst these three will be elected in the November general election. With that, I will go to the first question, starting with Anna Hansen and coming in this direction, and then we'll rotate who is first on the next question. This question is allotted 1 minute, and it regards the possibility of a paid legislature. Should New Mexico move to a paid legislature? And your response as to why or why not. Ms. Hansen?
Thank you. Should we have a paid legislature? We should definitely have more time for a legislative session. 30 days, 60 days is not enough to get all the bills done. I believe that a paid legislature would allow younger people to participate across the board. Modernization of our election of the legislature is really important, but length of time to look at bills is really, really important. And that is something that we do not have at the legislature right now. I would advocate for modernization and especially having staff. That is something that I have at the county, and I believe that every elected official deserves to have at least one staff person working for them. Thank you.
Ms. Krupnick?
I 100% stand in support of paying our legislature. Having that behind-the-scenes perspective of working directly with our 42 Democratic members, I've seen our legislators have to choose between their families, their day jobs, and their legislative duties. You can't balance everything. Something has to give. And so when we aren't paying our legislators, we're putting them in a spot to make the decision to, unfortunately, maybe take a step back from their legislative duties to continue to put a roof over their own heads. I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed is we can't expect them to serve at 100% if we aren't giving them the tools and resources to do that. So yes, I believe in paying our legislature. I also believe in providing them with the additional tool of staff to help balance that as well.
Ms. Trujillo.
I absolutely agree that we need to professionalize our legislature. I personally have experienced the challenges of not getting paid, having to cut your hours back, and not being able to continue doing that. So we need to professionalize the legislature. New Mexico's tried that a number of times. We haven't gotten quite there, but I think we're much closer. In addition to paying just for the session, you have to recognize that there's interim meetings throughout the rest of the year. So legislators will attend 2 to 3 day sessions throughout the state of New Mexico to hear from the public in those communities. So not only do we need to pay them, but as has already been said, we also need to provide professional staff, because you're taking time and after you get done working, if you're still working, to try to figure out what it is that's going to be coming forward in committees. I'm retired now. It's not necessary for me to have paid staff, to get paid, but I do think for that diversity, we need that.
Thank you. The next question is allotted 1 minute, and we will begin with Veronica Krupnick. The question regards health care and human services. It says, many experts say the health care safety net in New Mexico is dysfunctional. What, if anything, should the legislature do to address this?
So I think that it is all in our awareness that we have many New Mexicans flying out there without a safety net. One of the hardest efforts to watch, unfortunately, fail this past legislative session was Senate Bill 3, paid family medical leave. I watched on the House floor as the little board lit up, and that lost by such a narrow margin. So I definitely know that that will come back around and try again, because we do need to ensure that when the unexpected happens, because that's part of life, that we have built out the security and safety for our New Mexican workers to be able to take care of the unexpected, but also to have the safety of keeping their income and their jobs. Both of those are tied to that specific bill. So I think that that is a huge support that needs to continue to go through the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a pretty good health insurance program here in New Mexico. There are still some gaps for sure that need to be filled. The bigger challenge that we have is that we don't have enough providers. And so we've got to come up with some solutions for providers. I suspect that there's some folks out in the audience that have the same experience I have. I haven't been able to get a primary care provider since 2021. And the reason is because they continue to leave New Mexico. They come in, they can go to other states and they can make more. Our reimbursement is up to about 120%, but the health insurance companies still skim off their share of it. We need to raise that up to a minimum of 150%, and I believe then we'll see doctors, nurses, and other healthcare practitioners not only stay in New Mexico, but come to New Mexico. We've got to keep those that we train here. We're 6 slots vacant in our residency program at UNM this year, and there's a reason for that, and the reason is because they won't stay here.
Ms. Hansen.
Thank you. So Santa Fe County has created this great program called Connect, and during the pandemic we were able to serve many people with navigators to help them find homes, help them to find mental health care. We also have built La Sala, which is a crisis and detox center, and both of those things are part here to provide a safety net, which is really important for our constituents. But we have a huge unhoused problem. We have homelessness everywhere, and we need to do more. And one of the things that the state has is they have state land where we could put some of these shelters. There are many places throughout the city and county that we could start to provide places for these homeless. We need to provide more services for them because they are the ones who are really falling through the safety net. So I would advocate for that. Thank you.
Our next question allots 1 minute, and we'll begin with Linda Trujillo. It relates to open primaries. What is your position on having open primaries in New Mexico, and why?
Thank you. So that's a really difficult question, and I've thought this through on a number of times. And at this very moment, I am not in support of open primaries. I think we already have to spend enough money to reach out to the public that we know that we have to reach out to. Right now, we're all trying to reach out to Democrats. If we have to reach out to everyone, that makes it more difficult. What I have done in lieu of open primaries is I did pass legislation for same-day voter registration. You can go in to your voting poll place and you can change your registration from a Libertarian to a Democrat. You can change it from a Republican to a Democrat or a Democrat to a Republican. You can change it that very same day, up to that very same day. Prior to that legislation passing and being signed, you had to change that 20 days before, and you had to register 20 days before. That left a lot of people out. So I'm not in favor of open primaries at this point.
Ms. Hansen, your position on open primaries.
Thank you. So I agree it's a bit of a difficult question, but I think that it's a good idea to have open primaries. I think that we get an opportunity to reach out to many more people, and many more people get to participate in the democracy. And that's what we want. We want people participating in democracy. So I would take a slightly different stance. I also think that we need to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote. Because then if we get them in school board elections only, okay, so that they start voting at an early age. And when they start voting at an early age, it's proven that if you vote in 2 elections, you vote for life. And that is what we want. We want democracy to work. We want people to participate in the democratic system. Thank you.
Ms. Krupnick?
I am very much for open primaries, and that's because I think that good policy, good legislation is built out by many different voices. In my opinion, if you are a New Mexican, your voice matters. Doesn't matter what party you are. If you're showing up, I respect that. I think with the younger generation, I have felt the frustration of having to choose in this kind of binary system setup that we have right now, where we're asking people to cast aside their personal beliefs and their personal voices to fit into these boxes, which I don't like being put in a box. I don't think anybody does, and I'm very grateful that my policy issue of child welfare, it doesn't recognize that aisle. We're all working for one mission of the safety of our children and families, despite party lines, and that is something that I'm committed to, so I'm a strong advocate for opening primaries as well as extending the voting age.
The next question allots 1 minute, and we'll start with Anna Hansen. The question is, what suggestions do you have for improving public safety in regard to firearms, crime, and policing? Again, firearms, crime, and policing. Yes. What suggestions do you have for improving public safety in reference to firearms, crime in general, and policing?
So I think Santa Fe County has an excellent sheriff who has really raised the bar in many ways, and but crime is serious, and firearm possession is serious. One of the things that I have worked on over the last 6 or 7 years as a county commissioner is to get a shooting range on the Caja del Rio, because we have wildcat shooting out there. And if we can contain the shooting on the Caja del Rio in one location, we are able to close it off so that we have open areas for people to hike and ride their bikes and ride their horses. It's a novel idea, but I have worked with BLM to make this happen. So it does fit into the idea of containment of firearms, because then you would not be allowed to go and shoot anywhere on BLM land. Thank you.
Ms. Krupnick.
Well, first I want to say that I think the topic areas for public safety that were listed, crime, firearms, policing, are symptoms of a greater picture problem. And so my suggestions for examining that would actually be addressing poverty and housing first. I think that when we put people in survival mode, that creates reactionary decisions that might not have the long-term thought process, right? And so we need to increase the supports that our New Mexicans have, so that they're able to actually have the supports that they need, so they don't have to turn to crime to pay the bills, or to buy a firearm because we haven't given them the mental health or behavioral health supports that they need. So I would say in my line of work, I've actually moved towards decriminalizing, less policing, and getting down in community to see what the community need is.
Ms. Trujillo.
Thank you. So I had the honor of being part of passing the loophole, closing the loophole for background checks when I was in the legislature. I also supported the red flag laws that gave families and law enforcement an opportunity to use that law to remove a gun from someone who may be dangerous to themselves or others. I'm honored to have the designation of the 2024 Moms Demand Action Gun Sense candidate. And I truly believe in responsible gun ownership, but I also believe in responsible and sensible gun restrictions. I do agree that in order to reduce crime, we really have to address the root problem of it, and that's looking at Maslow's pyramid, the very bottom, right? Those basic necessities. We've got to try to get folks to have those basic necessities. In regards to policing, I passed legislation that would require only designated security guards who had to be police officers to carry guns in schools. And I met my times.
Thank you. The next question has been allotted 1 minute, and we'll start with Ms. Krupnick. The question: what is your position on reproductive rights, and in particular, termination of pregnancies by abortion?
My position on reproductive rights, I actually was a sexual health educator, working with middle and high school students in the northern tribal communities on healthy sexuality and body sovereignty. And at the core of our facilitation was this word, aging, and that's the Taylor word for respect. That was respect for ourselves, respect for others, and respect for community. So when it comes to reproductive rights, that is the core belief that I would like to bring forward, is respect. And I think that that means that as policymakers, we don't get to decide whether to keep or end the life of a child, or to make that decision for women. Women should be making those decisions for themselves. So I'm a big advocate for body sovereignty. I've taught it. I've been in community, making sure that young people in specific have the education, the tools, and the resources that they need to make informed decisions about this.
Thank you. Ms. Trujillo.
I absolutely am in support of a woman having the full right to make the decisions about her own body. Those are very personal decisions that we have to make. They're a decision between the woman, her family, if she so chooses, and between her care provider. That is not something that the legislature should be involved in. It is not something that lawmakers should do. And I am, again, proud to be endorsed by Planned Parenthood this year. I have been endorsed by Planned Parenthood many years in the past. I will continue to defend. When I was at RLD, I made sure that a license could not be removed from a professional for participation in what was determined in law as illegal abortions. I had that language removed with the help of legislators. And so I absolutely support a woman's right to her own body autonomy. Thank you.
So abortion is health care, period. You know, that's where we have to start. And so I support that. I am also endorsed by Planned Parenthood, which I think is really important. When I was a young woman, I helped start a family planning clinic in Berkeley and help people get abortions, because it is really important for women to have their own body autonomy and freedom. It is a personal right. It is their personal decision what they want to make and what they want to do with their body. It's not up to the law or men to tell them what they should be doing with their body. Thank you.
The next question allots 1 minute. We will start with Linda Trujillo. The question, what is your stance on paid family and medical leave in New Mexico? And if you could give us some specifics as to what that bill would look like.
Yeah, thank you for that. I am in very much support for paid family medical leave. That is a benefit that is provided in many other European countries, other countries around the world. It's about time that we catch up with that. It's unfortunate that we have unpaid family medical leave that is a national benefit. There are even Texas and Florida have determined that paid family medical leave is the right thing to do. Now, I will say that in Texas and Florida, it's an option that can be offered to their employees, but at the very least, they've started that. I think it should be a responsibility. I think it should be for 12 weeks, and I think it should at least match what the federal government says is a bona fide illness and or being with a child that you've adopted or a child that you have just had. My son was, it was great. He was given that opportunity to have 12 weeks to spend with his newborn child.
Thank you. Ms. Hansen?
Thank you. Santa Fe County has a really good paid family medical leave program. We provide a great safety net, but that's clearly not enough because that doesn't provide for small businesses. Myself, I'm a small business owner before I became a county commissioner. Paid medical family leave needs to take into account small business like 5 people or under, because for them to lose an employee for 12 weeks, 9 weeks, which was what was in the final bill in the legislature, is really difficult to have that. We need to figure out how we can make this paid medical family leave work for everyone, possibly when people are in a small business, they are able to have paid in and get paid medical leave, but at the same time, I guess I'll have to answer that later.
Thank you very much. The next question has been allotted one. Oh, I'm sorry. Brain freeze there. Ms. Krupnick, I apologize.
Do I get extra time? I'm just kidding. I 100% am in support of paid family medical leave. I think it's good for businesses. I think it's good for workers. I know I'm on a short time, so I will leave that as that. But one of the important things when I said earlier about the unexpected, that we have a reality here in New Mexico that we face is with the highest rates of missing and murdered Indigenous women and relatives in the entire country. And something that is very unique to this paid family medical leave is that it builds out that support for domestic abuse survivors and people who are dealing with that unexpected. And I think that that is a huge support for people who are trying to leave domestic abuse situations, who are dealing with the aftermath of unexpectedly losing their families. And this, having taken that into consideration in this piece of legislation, I know that Senator Rodriguez, who currently holds the seat, was a yes. I'd like to keep it as a yes.
Thank you. With the next question, we will start with Anna Hansen. The question has been allotted 1 minute. Legislating is a team sport, the question says. Please describe a situation in which you have successfully collaborated to accomplish a goal.
I can name a number of issues, but I'm going to use the example of the National Association of Counties. I am a member of the Environmental Land Use Committee, and if you don't know about the National Counties, conferences, and committees, they are incredibly conservative. And so to negotiate with them and to get bills passed, I have been incredibly successful. I brought forward a resolution on pollinators, and the Agriculture Committee didn't like some of the language I had in there, and so I worked with them and we resolved the issue so that now the national platform has a protection of pollinators as part of their platform. Those are the kind of things that I have been able to do, not just nationally, but locally. I've also worked with land developers to come up with a good solution for a development. Thank you.
Ms. Krupnick?
One of the greatest collaborative efforts that I've been a part of is being on the front lines to protect the Federal Indian Child Welfare Act, which we got a decision back from the Supreme Court last year. And that collaboration was working with state government, tribes, attorneys, judges, community-based organizations, the Supreme Court themselves. That was a across-the-board, across-the-aisle collaboration, but we came together, and I'm happy to be one of the lead young people advocates on that who did testify on behalf of some of these organizations to the Supreme Court. But that was a full effort, and that's where we had to put aside our differences and see each other human to human and connect on that level. And with that collaboration, I'm very, very, very proud to say that we won that fight. And I've continued to work on that here in New Mexico, helping to support the Indian Family Protection Act.
Thank you. Ms. Trujillo?
Okay, so it's really easy to pass legislation where you give senior citizens college credits for $5. That kind of legislation usually passes unanimously. The ones that are the harder are the ones that people disagree. I had the opportunity to carry an over 600-page bill to upgrade our election system. That bill had more than 50 amendments to it. And when I went to discuss it and debate it on the House floor, there was a stack of papers sitting on two of the Republicans' desks who were threatening me that they were going to amend it to the end of the world. And we were able to negotiate it, and we walked away with some really good legislation. So it's really important that we not just talk amongst ourselves as Democrats, but that we reach across the aisle. And quite honestly, some of my best friends in the House and in the Senate are the Republicans, and I usually go and ask their opinion before I carry anything. Thank you.
Thank you. For the next question, we will start with Ms. Krupnick. This has 2 minutes allotted. What do you consider your top 3 priorities which you would address for District 24?
Okay, 2 minutes, that feels like a lot of time now. For me here in District 24, my first priority is ensuring child welfare and safety. That is something that our state as a whole has very much struggled with. We've ranked consistently either the last or second to last state in overall child well-being for at least the last 5 years. While we've seen some movement, having experienced this system that I now work in, that I've now worked in, has shown me that not a lot has changed. And so I think that is a primary concern for me, is making sure that our next generation and foundation for future generations, that they are protected. My second priority is affordable housing. I think we need the representation of folks like me who are renting, who have struggled with being unhoused, who have struggled with unstable housing, to provide that sense of urgency behind the housing crisis issues that we're facing right now. And my last, third priority is environmental justice. I think that as a younger person, that there is that knowledge that the decisions that are being made today, I and my generation and the generations to come after us will be battling for the rest of our lives. For me, that's urgent. And I've seen young people rally around this issue because they understand that we need that voice. Right now in the New Mexico Senate, we don't have representation under, I want to say 36, but our New Mexico population under 34 is nearly 1 million. That's 45% of our citizens who currently do not have a voice, and I know this issue 100% matters to them, and I'd like to open that door for their voice to be heard in the New Mexico Senate.
Ms. Trujillo, your top 3 priorities.
2 minutes really does seem like a long time since we've just had one. So I have been an education advocate for a long, long time. What I've learned over the course of 25 plus years of advocating for public education is that you really have to think about how do you make sure that kids come to school ready to learn. And so I will focus my attention on making sure that kids come to school ready to learn. So what does that mean? Again, we go back to the bottom of Maslow's pyramid. You got to make sure that they have access to stable housing. You've got to make sure that they have food security. You've got to make sure that they have access to health care. And how do you get all of those things, those 3 things? You make sure that their families, their caregivers have access to high-wage jobs. That means that you have to support higher education as well as the K-12 education and early education. So research shows that countries that have turned their education system around have invested in those very things. They've also invested in career and technical education. We moved very, very far away from career and technical education, and we're moving back in that direction. We need to have building trades available at our high schools. We need to have more medical programs like we have over at Capitol High School because kids thrive in those programs. We need to have more programs that are specific to the things that kids want to learn in middle school and high school. Let's have early education and K-6 be about learning how to read so that you can learn how to learn. But let's have our middle school and our higher education really focusing on giving kids those job-ready skills that will help them be excited and engaged about coming to school. So those are the things that I will focus on. It is public education, but it's the underlying things that will improve making sure that a child is ready to learn when they come to school.
Ms. Hansen.
So one of the most important things to me, and I think to many of you, is water. And water is life. There is no doubt about it. And so having clean water is incredibly important to me. That is why I have served on the Beckman Direct Diversion for the last 8 years and won a lawsuit for $70 million to improve the diversion intake on the Beckman Direct Diversion. That means that for millions of people in New Mexico, we will have clean water in Santa Fe. I also am an infrastructure gal. I love infrastructure. I think it is one of the most important things that we can provide to our community. Good roads, sewers, they are incredibly important. And in this district, there are many areas that do not have sewers, that people are living on septic tanks that are failing. Airport Road, the village of Agua Fria, and there are other places throughout the state, of course, that need sewers. But in this district, that is also an issue. So I would work to make sure that we provide the resources for good infrastructure. Then another issue that is incredibly important to me is mental health, mental and behavioral health. We see the results of what is happening with behavioral and mental health on our roads every day. And so we have the Recovery Center that Senator Rodriguez made as a priority. I will continue to make that as a priority because to provide good mental and behavioral health is essential for our communities to survive.
The next question has been allotted 1 minute, and we'll start with Linda Trujillo. This relates to affordable housing. Affordable housing is a major issue in this district. What can the state do to create affordable housing?
Back to 1 minute, so I'll talk fast. So some of the things that we have to do, I will support, and I have asked for and advocated for, is we need to have better rental assistance. Well, what we did during COVID, when we provided rental assistance, was one of the best things that we did to bring children and families out of poverty. We also need to, and this is nuts and bolts stuff, we need to update the regulatory building codes. There needs to be a 2-year limit for new building codes that are at a national level, the model. We're at 2021 and we just adopted that this year. We need to be at 2024, so those need to be mandatory. But we also need to increase the workforce. If we want to build more housing units, we've got to have more builders, we've got to have more plumbers, we've got to have more electricians. So going back to that career and technical education, we really need to focus on building the workforce. That workforce is struggling in New Mexico and it's struggling around the country. We also need to protect the current housing units that we have, and that means from apartments to manufactured homes.
Anna Hansen, affordable housing.
In Santa Fe County, we have been working to provide affordable housing with the Nueva Acequia project that is next to our HUD housing, Camino Jacoba. But what we really need to do is go big. And I mean like big, have a $100 million fund from the state legislature for affordable housing. We need to provide the resources. This year, when we asked for money for affordable housing, we got 100,000. Nancy Rodriguez, Senator Rodriguez, asked for 50 million. She got 5. We have to be willing to step up and fund this kind of projects because they can't happen overnight, and counties don't and cities don't always have the money. And we have state land that we could use to build these and use the infrastructure and also speed up the land use process.
Ms. Krupnick.
I'm very fortunate to have already begun my efforts in addressing housing here in New Mexico. I sat on the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Project, which is a HUD-funded program that put several $1 million into the northern 14 counties of New Mexico, and that was investing in transitional living, independent living, youth shelters, housing vouchers, and I could just see with the young people that I was able to work with the difference that those types of programs made, because it also included wraparound services. Another thing that I have been advocating for is cash assistance programs, right? Seeing if we can give our New Mexicans, to address that short-term survival mode, $500 to $700 of cash assistance to address their own needs. I think that that's something that we need to move towards, instead of assuming what's going to work for our New Mexicans, letting them make that decision of what's going to help them thrive.
Thank you. Our next question, we will start with Anna Hansen. 1 minute allotted. What policies and programs do you suggest to create well-paying jobs in New Mexico?
I support the film industry. It has provided many well-paying jobs. I think the cannabis industry has also provided well-paying jobs, and we need to really diversify our workforce. Those are two industries so far that have provided good jobs for our constituents, but thinking more about how constituents can work from home, how we can help them build a cottage industry, because that is working for yourself, as I know, I have been a small business owner my entire life, is really satisfying and allows people to build self-worth and resources. So I would like to see a way to increase our small businesses and help them to create more products with regenerative agriculture and others. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Krupnick.
I'm very proud to currently sit as the vice president of the board of Casa First, a local nonprofit here in town. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because we actually moved to a 32-hour work week with 40-hour pay, as well as providing our staff with a wellness stipend of about $400 a month, again, to determine what our workers need to keep their mental health going. I believe that when it comes to well-paying jobs, that's really, for me, a narrative shift, right? We have to shift over our priorities to center the safety and well-being of our staff and our workers. And I think that probably is going to be a much longer conversation than 1 minute. But I do think that if we're asking our workers to do difficult jobs, like in my field of child welfare, if we're asking them to work overtime, if we're asking them to make these significant sacrifices, that our workers should be compensated for that time and effort.
Ms. Trujillo.
Thank you. So I'm going to go back to that career and technical education, because we truly don't have a shortage of jobs. We don't have a shortage of high-paying jobs, either in New Mexico or in any other state right now. What we have is a shortage of workers. And the reason, number one reason that we have a shortage of workers is because baby boomers like myself are retiring. We're leaving the workforce. That's leaving a big gap. The other reason is that we've had such really poor immigration laws that we haven't allowed people to come in and get those jobs. Those are the two reasons. So I will continue to focus on career and technical education as a way to a higher paying job. We've got building and trades jobs. I pay my plumber over $100 an hour, closer to $200, to come in and fix a leak in my faucet. We've got healthcare positions that we've got a shortage of. Those are also fairly good paying jobs. If you've got a lot of student debt, that is a little bit different, but those can be high paying jobs. We have a shortage of qualified individuals, and I want to work on that.
For the next question, we will begin with Anna Hansen. 1 minute allotted. And I'm a bit confused by this one, but I'll try to broaden it. What suggestions do you have for strengthening the protections currently afforded by extreme protection order? I'm not sure if that's the red flag law. All right, the red flag law. Yes, absolutely. What suggestions do you have for strengthening the protections currently afforded by the red flag law, also known as extreme protection order?
Okay, so I think that has to do with guns and making sure that we have good background checks, which is something that we are still weak in. I think making sure that our people are protected, and when we know that there are criminal activities in our area, we should be more actively pursuing the police and the sheriff to protect them. It's incredibly dangerous out on the Caja del Rio, and we need to strengthen the rules about being able to shoot anywhere. And so I think that those are some of the things that we can look at with the red flag laws. Maybe the time needs to be extended for how long we make sure that somebody is without a firearm, especially if they are threatening or have.
Thank you. Linda Trujillo?
So that's a really legal question that I will have to say, I am an attorney, but I'm not a criminal law attorney. I've done administrative law for my legal career. I will have to look to experts to make those kinds of decisions about what do we need to do to strengthen it. We passed it. I think a lot of what needs to happen at this moment is that we need to have training for those who have to implement it. We need to have more information out to families that want to use it. So how do we strengthen that? I would have to talk to professionals about the best way to do it. But I supported it when we passed the law, and I will support strengthening that law also.
Ms. Krupnick?
All right, so I think with the red flag law that in order to strengthen it, as Linda here said, I do think that I'm not a lawyer, but I have worked in addressing criminal system pipelines. So no matter what I do when it comes to gun legislation, I want a couple of things. I want to know from the experts their opinions on this, also from our community. I think sometimes, again, we make the assumption that we know it's going to work. And then I also want to know from the people who are navigating some of our dangerous spaces, unfortunately, right now, such as schools, community spaces, what their thoughts are on that as well. But at the end of the day, I do believe we need those waiting periods. I do believe we need those background checks. And again, I think a symptom of this problem, we definitely need to reestablish our behavioral health system here in New Mexico to address that intersection as well.
The next question has been allotted 1 minute, and I apologize if we're not rotating perfectly here. I guess I need AI to figure out this chart. But all right. In this round, we'll start with Linda Trujillo, and this relates to the Americans with Disabilities Act. The ADA is important legislation. What strategies and actions would you suggest to increase compliance here in New Mexico?
Yeah, thank you. So there's a couple of things. I just want to clarify that the legislature gave $200 million for access to affordable housing in the last legislative session, and $100 million to building more affordable units. I think what needs to be included in that is that we need to have funding set aside so that our buildings and our older infrastructure in New Mexico can be brought up to grade. Even having the, so that you can read what people are saying on our television, on our videos, that is happening at the legislature, but it doesn't happen nearly as much. There are some barriers, particularly for folks who you don't see what those barriers are, that we need to address. And so there needs to be money put aside from the legislature so that we can upgrade to make sure that those services are available. The AI is really helpful in making sure that people can read on the computer or on the television as people are talking. But it costs money.
Thank you. Anna Hansen?
So the ADA is a really important rule that was passed a number of years ago and has now provided many services. But Santa Fe is still a little behind in many ways with that, especially our parks and our sidewalks. And I think that is somewhere we would just a simple issue like our parks and like our sidewalks to provide for the disabled would be really helpful. But then also at our recreational facilities to provide more availability for the impaired, to make sure that they have the same ability and access that many of us have, is to, swim or to wander around our facilities and have a good quality of life. And I think that we have the ability to do that for sure in New Mexico. So thank you.
Ms. Krupnick.
I think that people experiencing disabilities, right, we've kind of talked a little bit about, there are invisible, there's front-facing disabilities, and I want to make sure that no matter what, that we're meeting our community members where they're at, right, and I'm fortunate to work with kids, and you see an array of different disabilities that these young people experience, and I think one of the biggest ones for me is in the school system. We have so many children and youth who have unaddressed learning disabilities that need the additional support to get their educational needs met. So I think outside of the infrastructure updates that are needed, I would focus my energy on addressing that our students, no matter their background or abilities, that they have what they need to be successful.
They were whispering in my ear. I love that, but I get lost. Okay, I'm sorry. The next question. One minute. And we'll start with Anna Hansen. Our country and state are incredibly divided politically. It has been suggested that our primary election policy contributes to the divisiveness. How do you think that eliminating the primary system would affect this situation?
Oh, I don't think we should eliminate a primary round of candidates, because I think we need to have a diverse ability to have many different candidates appearing. But if we had open primaries, we would have a much wider bench to choose from. And so one of the ways to do that is to make sure that we're making candidates available. I really believe in public financing, something that we do not have. The only place that we have that is in the city council races. It is not available in county commissions or state legislative race, and I think that that would open up the primaries and open up the field to many more people, and then we would have a diversity of candidates, and I think that that is a healthy democracy.
Ms. Krupnick, what about eliminating primaries?
While I do believe in opening our primaries very strongly, I don't think that eliminating our primary election will, sorry, words. I do think that keeping the primary is important. I do think our focus needs to be on voter education and voter access. I think that that's a huge barrier for getting people out to vote in the primary election. A lot of people don't understand the significance of what it means for their general election race, right? I think at the doors, that's one of the greatest things that I've had to explain, is that whoever wins our primary essentially goes on to win the general, and people are surprised by that. So that's why I would focus my efforts, instead of eliminating the primaries, to education and making sure our voters have the access to the information that they need to make that informed decision early in the primary election.
Ms. Trujillo.
Thank you. So the purpose of a primary is for a party, an organized party, to determine who's going to represent them in the general election. That's why I'm not in favor of an open primary at this point, because that's the purpose of a primary. If we want to have an open election, I just prefer that we get rid of the primary and we turn to what other states have done, which is let's just have a general election, and the primary, instead of being a primary to determine party representation, becomes the top two people go on to win, and there has to be a 51% majority. So rather than having open primaries, I support eliminating the primary and going to that top two do a runoff. But I think what we really could do to increase voter participation, and we saw this when we did the local election law, that is, we consolidate elections so that people knew when it was every year, every other year. And if we go to mail-in ballots, you look at the states that have mail-in ballots, and they have high turnout.
The next question will allot 1 minute, and this it certainly asks for expertise that I do not have, but let me ask it nonetheless. I'm a retired attorney. I don't know if that gives expertise, but this will be addressed first to Veronica Krupnick. What do you know about and where do you stand on wastewater reuse rule? That's WQCC 23-84 at the Water Quality Control Commission. One minute.
All right, I'm also not a lawyer, but when it comes to wastewater ruling, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of that specific because I don't know that piece of policy. But when it comes to wastewater, I think one of the biggest challenges that we've seen here in Santa Fe is with our wastewater treatment plant. Right? We know that that is currently under repair. It's been broken. We're looking to hopefully create a new wastewater treatment plant facility, but one of the biggest things that I want to make sure that I share is I don't believe that we should be using our drinkable water as a sacrifice to fulfill the needs of things like golf courses, country clubs, places that it's not addressing a basic human need. I think we need to ensure that the drinking water that we have is going to people. And right now I know that that is a struggle that we're battling out here in Santa Fe.
Ms. Trujillo?
Wasn't sure who was next. So this really isn't a 1-minute answer, but I will try to consolidate it. The first bill that I ever passed was an update to the State Rules Act. I truly believe in our government processes. I support our government. I believe that they will get the job done. I believe what's being asked about is the produced water rules that are up for consideration with the Water Quality Control Commission. There's a hearing on those rules on May 13th through the 17th. There will be a lot of scientists, a lot of individuals who are speaking scientifically about those rules. I am not a scientific scientist. I will wait to hear what they end up determining, and I am committed that if what they determine does not fall in line with what our environmental organizations believe is the right way to go, that I will be up for absolutely carrying and or supporting legislation that corrects the rules that may be adopted.
Am I correct that produced water would be the use of non-potable water in oil and gas drilling?
It's kind of. It's actually the use of, so it's produced water is water that's been used for another purpose. In many cases, it's oil and gas, but that water goes through a cleaning process similar to the way that our sewers go through a cleaning process, and then it becomes available. So this rule, and I just happened to have this information because there was an email sent out about these rules that are coming up, and so I've done some research. But it is produced water, and it's in line with the Produced Water Act that was adopted in 2019.
Thank you. I wanted to clarify that for our audience. Ms. Hansen, produced water.
So that is what the topic is now. We were talking about wastewater, the rural wastewater control, reuse. There's many places where this can fall into. I didn't hear produced water in the original question. So, but I am more than happy to speak about produced water because I do not support produced water being used anywhere else except for on the oil and gas fields because it contains radioactive PFAS. It is not something that you can put on agricultural land. You cannot dump it on roads. They are now having tremendous problems back east because they thought they could take this so-called reused water and put it on the roads with the asphalt, and now they have salt and toxics leaching into the ground, and the farmland is becoming contaminated. So I do not support produced water being used anywhere else except for on oil and gas fields. And it was a complicated question because it didn't begin with produced water.
And I do not mean to add to the confusion, so Ms. Krupnick, you can address either waste water or produced water or both, if you wish.
Okay. Well, I did, share my sentiment about wastewater here in Santa Fe. I think when it comes to the larger topic of water, that we need to make sure that we are prioritizing our communities who are most directly impacted, right? And up here in Santa Fe, we have that privilege of turning on, the faucet and having clean water come out. Not everyone in our state has that privilege, and I'm a tribal member, so this is very personal to me, but many of our tribes are battling with that right now, of not being able to do that, but literally having to drive miles and miles away to get that drinking water. Another thing when it comes to water that I definitely believe in is moving away from our extractive industries, our oil and gas, to help bring that water usage down as well. So I will leave it at that.
Thank you. I might suggest to the audience, since we had a question about eliminating primaries, one or more of you might want to, after the session is over, ask the candidates what their position is on ranked choice voting, which in a sense addresses the primary situation. This question will give 1 minute. And we'll start with Anna Hansen. What is one question you wish we had asked but didn't tonight? And give your answer.
I think the environment is incredibly important. Climate change is something that we are facing every single day. We all know that it is warming. Many of us in this room, I can see, have lived here most of their lives, and when we used to be able to use swamp coolers, now we need air conditioners because of the effects of climate change. As an environmentalist, I have continued to stand up for clean energy, to decarbonize our environment so that we can live in a livable planet. Oil and gas is contributing to the fossil fuel carbon that we are facing, and we really need to move away from that. That is why I have installed EV stations and county buildings. It's why 14 additional buildings now have solar on them. That in the beginning we had 14, now we have doubled it. So the question would be the environment. Thank you.
Ms. Krupnick?
The question is one question I wish we could ask that we didn't ask. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
If there's one question you wish we had asked,
Okay.
please tell us and give us your answer.
Okay. All right. I think the one question that I wish had been asked, and I think not just in this forum, but in general, is where our candidates lie with their values and their approach. I think we can get into the nitty-gritty of policy and legislation, but I think ensuring that you connect with your people who are going to represent you on that human-to-human base, I think is very, very important. For me personally, my values, I believe in co-governance, I believe in cultural humility, I believe in respect, I believe in community-based led and center efforts. One thing I've always said is I wouldn't be here without community, without people fighting for me in rooms that I'm not in. So that is a value that I will be carrying forward, is ensuring that no matter what leadership position that I hold, that I'm bringing that community up with me and leaving the door open for those to come behind me. I think that that's hugely important.
Ms. Trujillo?
And we have 1 minute, right? 1 minute?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I think the one question that I wished could have gotten asked is, how do we diversify our economy so that we can move away from the oil and gas industry? And it's already been brought up, but I spent the last 3.5 years working on cannabis, implementing adult use cannabis for our community. I started off with that, with not gray hair, and I've ended up with a good chunk of gray hair. It was one of the toughest things I've ever had to do in my life. Building up the community, adopting the rules, getting everything in place, but I am so thrilled that in March, y'all probably saw, we reported $1 billion in sales. That's $1.2 million in cannabis excise tax for just Santa Fe. Just Santa Fe, not Santa Fe County, Santa Fe. And I absolutely don't like ranked choice voting.
Next, we'll have a lightning round of questions, 30 seconds each. But I want to ask our technology expert, Henry, if this would be an appropriate time to take a break, a short break, or not yet? Okay, we'll go ahead. Lightning round. 30 seconds for the answer. And let's begin with Veronica Krupnick. Ms. Krupnick, the question is this: do you favor requiring all political campaigns to be funded completely with public monies?
I do believe that we need to move towards individual donors and funders. I think the big reason for that is because it does balance the scale long term. If we are lobbyists funded fully, that means when we are in our elected positions, that's where our priority is going to be, right? We now owe that entity or that special interest group something for their money. When it comes to people, I am very proud to be individually funded. That was so fast.
Trujillo.
So I would love to have public campaign financing, but the state can't afford it. That's the reality of it. And so as much as I would like to see, see us move in that direction, we don't have the funding for it. So let's start off with small things. Let's start off with maybe school boards. Let's move on to higher and higher offices. But I will say that I learned in the very first term that I served, and the Speaker of the House at the time told me, if you can't vote your conscience in your community, you shouldn't be in this job, regardless of where you get money from for your campaign.
Ms. Hansen?
I think it would be great if we could move towards a idea of public financing for campaigns and allowing people to donate to campaigns, but that there be a cap at some point so that it could be a fair and equal race. I agree that maybe starting with school board and we have city council, maybe county commission, and working on building a public finance system that can help support our community.
Thank you. We have run out of time. Thank you for all your questions. At this point, we'll move to 1-minute closing statements, starting in the reverse order. Linda Trujillo.
Thank you very much. Again, it's been an honor to be here tonight. It's incredibly humbling to try to rapid fire answer questions, but I appreciate your patience and your understanding. Again, I will say that I'm honored to be endorsed by Planned Parenthood and have the designation of the 2024 Moms Demand Action Gun Sense candidate. What I'm most proud of at this very moment is that I have an endorsement from the American Federation of Teachers. I take that very seriously. And so when I say that public education is my primary focus, but it's all of those underlying things, I guarantee you, I'm a former Head Start teacher. I've been an education advocate for well over 25 years. I am here to fight the battle to make sure that our kids have access to a quality education regardless of their zip code. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. And I humbly ask for your support and your vote on June 4th if you live in District 24. Thank you.
Ms. Krupnick.
Thank you all so much for being here and for listening to me and my stance on these rapid fire questions. I truly do believe that heading into one of our most critical election cycles that we've seen in our generation, that having voices like mine who live in that intersection, right? I'm 28, I'm Native, I've been through the systems, I'm living the challenges with you. Having that voice on the ground at the state level fighting to protect you is of extreme importance. I will say that I pride myself on being a community leader who is centered in compassion, courage, and very fierce community, and that I am ready to be that champion for our community, and I'm ready to be that voice for our future. And so I also humbly ask for your help and your support and your vote on June 4th in our primary election to hopefully achieve my mission to become your next state senator here in District 24. Thank you so much.
Ms. Hansen.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. I am an environmental champion. That is what I have worked on my entire life. I have been a champion for our water, our air, and our land. When I think about what is really important, what is important to New Mexicans is surface water protection. New Mexico has been designated the most endangered state for the rivers because we have lost all of our federal protection. To me, that is an incredibly important issue that we didn't get to discuss tonight. I would love to discuss it with you. I care about water. I care about the environment. I'm a leader who gets things done. I have a track record of accomplishing bringing millions to my district. I want to serve. I want to continue to do the good work that I have been doing for the state of New Mexico. I humbly ask for your vote on June 4th, and I look forward to speaking to all of you afterwards. Thank you so much.
As a reminder, you should know that early in-person voting starts on May 7th, and of course the primary itself is on June 4. If you are interested in a mail-in ballot, you may go to the county clerk's website for instructions on that. The League of Women Voters also has information on that as well. So please vote. This concludes this evening's State Senate District 24 Candidate Forum. I want to thank Pat Dorsey and Phil Casals of the Santa Fe New Mexican for helping to live stream this, and Henry Lopez with Lopez Technology, our technology guru tonight. Thank you, Henry. The streaming will be available on the New Mexico's website if you wish to watch it later. That is on the web at santafenewmexican.com or on the League's website, lwvsfc.org. Again, lwvsfc.org. For more information on the election and the candidates, you may read the League's voter guide, which will be coming out soon. It is now available, again, on the League's website, and you may also go to vote411.org. That's the numeral 411, vote411.org. We want to remind you that if you have additional questions, I trust that the candidates would be willing to let you address those after we close. For those of you watching online, if you have questions for the candidates, you may electronically convey those at vote411.org by accessing the candidates' individual contact information. Another forum for the District Attorney's Office and for the County Clerk's Office will be held on April 25. And an additional forum for candidates for County Commissioner for District 2 and District 4 that will be held on April 30. More information about these forums are available at the League's website. Be sure to make your voice heard. Please vote early, absentee, or on June 4th. Please join me in thanking the candidates for their participation.